I think the market is maturing in the UAE. There is a recognition of the value of good design. There is definitely a recognition the value of contextual design and how when projects are really considering the context, that can really add value to the whole community that lives in that area.
We've really kind of seen how this sort of translation between both hospitality has sort of synergized into sort of the residential sector, in the fact that obviously offering for guests and residents actually, more amenity spaces, more community spaces is a very important thing now. Scale. So scale has started to come down from more of the overscaled apartments and larger scale residential properties. We're now looking at more of a boutique, more intensely designed resolution of space that really is more responsive to needs and driven by the function. So obviously it makes it more efficient and cost and buildability is better for the obviously developer. But I think the clients are getting a more sophisticated product now, and obviously that's great because the competition's high, so everyone's looking to redefine and attract, their clients.
That's kind of a core piece of our work, and we're also working on 5 or 6 other kind of developments in and around, particularly Riyadh. But also we have a very large kind of master planning urban design team who have been working on kind of large settlements, city infrastructure projects over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's based out of London, and we're seeing, particularly in Saudi, the desire to develop new communities, new places, basically, new typologies for living, work, and education.
I think sustainability has become more than just the buzzword that it was a few years ago. It's become a real requirement. I think there is an awareness that this is a real issue that needs to be addressed, and I really believe that this region is really embracing that.
I'm very, very keen on regeneration and understanding sort of regeneration and repurposing. So existing structures that are worth saving, that actually become the fabric of the city, like for example Dubai World Trade Center. It's a fantastic building, and I think the idea of actually looking at that as an opportunity to create a more of an accessible type of program to buildings like that you can actually experience, and so that we can actually preserve these structures from the modernist 70s, from the progressive eras of Dubai, when it was sort of first formulating its sort of stance on the global scale, and how we can how we can actually resurrect these for accessibility so that they last. And I think that's an important part of Dubai's growth as an emirate, and also the UAE wider as a country. And there's some fantastic examples of that in Sharjah and also in Abu Dhabi.
I'd say the scale of projects is changing. Real projects at a bigger scale that support the kind of quantums of leisure, entertainment, retail, office that sits alongside it. There's definitely an emphasis on integrating and making community and health and well-being part of an approach. Linked into that, sustainability. So there's a move away from large-scale internalised environments, having environments that can be open at the cooler months of the year and respond to climate. So we've got teams who are actively looking at passive design, design sustainability at an early stage in all of our projects.
One of the issues that we do face is, although we get a lot of queries, but it does take time for them to kind of come to fruition, and the projects actually getting off the ground. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have, at the moment. But in terms of opportunities, yes, there are. I mean, we are experiencing, from a regional point of view, we are experiencing not many more queries that are coming in from Egypt, where we are already working, from Bahrain, as far as Morocco actually, and from Saudi, of course. I mean, there's such a big sort of positivity around all the developments that are happening in Saudi. And I know of ourselves and other firms which are quite keen to be a part of that development and that vision. Similar thing here. I mean, there is a 2030 vision in Abu Dhabi as well, in the UAE, and everybody knows that that will eventually culminate into projects.
The market's challenging. The good thing about the market here in Dubai is that it's become a base. So even if the market's more challenging regional, it's actually there is an access to other markets from here because it's established a good quality of architecture and engineering and consultancy. I think generally the big pressures, and not just exclusively to this area, is time. Obviously the time pressures for clients, the time pressures for delivery of projects. That's very much the big difficulty we face, and I think many other practices face it as well. You have to adapt, but I think it's one of those things that it's part and parcel of being an architecture practice and working in a very fast-paced environment.
Well, particularly I've been a judge for Cityscape for the last few years, and we just reviewed the finalists, and there's a lot more emphasis on the public realm and how projects are really connecting to the street and to the communities, which has really been interesting to see this trend, and it's very encouraging to see that that's become an important aspect in design in general.
I participated in a bit of a panel discussion yesterday in a talk on iconic architecture, and obviously we're always referring to iconic architecture here, but if you look at other cities, it's actually the reason icons stay is what's around them. It's the community, it's the regeneration in which these signature buildings establish, and I think Dubai is now at that stage. So obviously the whole downtown area with Burj Khalifa was a real sort of attraction point as a catalyst, but what's starting to happen around there in other parts of Dubai, around sort of City Walk and down the beach, is a lot of this understanding of public realm. The idea in that there's space to actually communicate and to congregate and gather as a society. I think also the interesting points to take from what was recently presented at Venice with the National Pavilion with Dr. Khaled Alawaidi is this understanding that life beyond bigness. And I think it's a great research body that needs to be further explored, is looking at the sort of more established communities, in Satwa, in Dira, in other parts of the more old Dubai, looking at the modernism from the 70s. There's some fantastic buildings, fantastic opportunity, and great public realm. And now that is starting to come into the more new, interesting developments because people are recognizing it and they're seeing, happiness, which is a key drive for Dubai's government.